Think you missed your chance to start a garden this year? Well, so did half of us. But here's the good news. It is not too late. With the right tools and a simple plan, you can still grow a thriving garden starting today. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I use my favorite garden planning software called Seedtime to plan my garden no matter what the season. Plus, I'm going to share a free quick start garden plan that I created to help you figure out what to plant, especially if you're not sure where to begin. A lot of gardeners feel like if they didn't plant everything at the beginning of the season, they've missed their window. But the truth is, gardening doesn't have to follow a one-size-fits-all calendar, and that's exactly why I love using Seedtime. Instead of guessing what I can still plant or flipping through charts and dates, I just plug in my zip code. It gives me a personalized planting calendar based on right now. It shows me exactly what I can grow this week, next week, and even months to come, so I never feel behind and I always feel ahead because I know it's coming. And so whether you're starting fresh midway through the season, planning out your fall garden, or just trying to figure out what's possible, Seedtime is going to take the guesswork out of it. So let me show you how it works. I'm going to open up my Seedtime account and walk you through how I use it to plan what to plant, when to plant it, and how I keep it all organized in one simple planting calendar. And before I jump into Seedtime, I just want to let you know that Seedtime has a free account. All the features I'm showing you today, I believe, are on the free version, so it's not something that you have to pay for. Of course, there's better features with the paid plan, just like with most things out there, right? But there's a free version that is absolutely incredible. So don't step away, keep watching and see how you can start implementing this into your garden planning as well. Okay, so this here is my current Seedtime calendar. Everything's filled in from early in the beginning of the year all the way through the end of summer. I have not yet planned out my fall garden, but this is just a map of what my summer garden looks like. And so I'm going to actually start fresh just so you can see exactly how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new calendar and show you how to do this. So what's really great is that Seedtime automatically pulls in your first and last frost dates based on your exact area. So what I'm going to do is just call this test, and then you type in your own zip code. So I am in Exeter, California, which is zone 9B. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull up my average last frost, my average first frost. But what's great is that I actually know from living here my entire life that based on the last few years, this average last frost is actually not very accurate. And that's not Seedtime's fault. It's because they're pulling in the average weather data, just like you would if you went to the Farmer's Almanac or Google. This is actually probably closer to April 1st for us. Even though we might not get a hard frost, it's often pretty cold. We've been having some late season storms. And so I never plant my summer garden until usually late April, sometimes even early May, depending on the year. So I actually like to switch this to April 1st. And so then it pushes all of my planting dates forward just a bit so that I don't have to worry about planting warm season crops too soon and having them get damaged by some late season storms and cooler weather that we typically have. So you can move that date or just keep it at your average. But if you know that those dates are wrong, switch them, and then you're going to have a really personalized planting plan. So that's my first favorite thing. So I'm going to save the changes, and now we're going to hop into the calendar and start adding some crops. So what you'll do is you'll just click right here to calendar. So now we are in the blank calendar view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding crops as if I were starting fresh today. So I'm recording this towards the end of May, and I'm just going to start adding in crops, pretending I'm starting right now. So I'm going to start with bush green beans. So I'm going to type in green beans. And if you know the variety that you want to grow, you can select the variety, or you can just leave it at bush green beans and it will just pull in all the averages and your approximate planting dates and harvest windows for specific crops. The reason putting the variety in would be nice is that some crops take longer to mature and some are quicker. So if you want those exact dates, you can put in the variety, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do is add this to my calendar. And one quick thing to note is that Seedtime automatically tells you the recommended planting method. So for example, green beans should be directly sown by seed, and so it automatically puts it in as a directly sown by seed crop. However, if it was something like, say, a cucumber that could be transplanted or directly sown by seed, then you could choose to switch this if you wanted, but it will automatically pull in that ideal planting method. And so then I'll click schedule, and what you'll see is it puts it as April 1st. So my first seeding date for green beans technically was back in April. And the problem with this is that for a lot of gardeners, they see this and then they think they miss their window, that it's too late to plant. But in reality, we can still continue planting green beans all throughout the summer, all the way really up until late summer, going into early fall. And so what I love is that what you can do is you can come in here and say add the crop again. And this is actually a brand new feature that Seedtime just came out with. And it allows you to find your next planting date if you missed the first one. So automatically it pulls in your first planting date for the season. So for example, green beans are a warm weather crop. It's pulling in that first date after our last frost, and a lot of gardeners see that and they just think, oh, I missed my window and now I can't plant a garden this season. But what you can do is you can actually come in here and you add your crop, and now you can say, what's the next best day after today to start that crop? And you say find date. And what it's going to do is it's going to generate, based on your exact location, what that next best date is. So great news. So see, it's saying the next best time I can plant green beans in my area is May 22nd, which on the day that I'm recording this is May 21st. So basically I can plant it today, or it's saying go out to the garden tomorrow and plant. So I'm going to set that as my date. And it even gives you a description, and it just says that this is when the soil temperatures are warm enough for you to direct seed the beans without protection. This timing yields a 54-day maturity by mid-July with average night lows under 70 degrees for good fruit set, and provides over 2 weeks of harvest before the first frost. So it just basically is telling you you have plenty of time to get this in the ground for the crop to mature and for you to get a harvest before the weather wouldn't allow. And so now I'm going to add this to my schedule. And now you can see right here, this yellow is today. It's saying, okay, you can direct seed tomorrow. And then what I love even more is that now you can come over here and you can say add a succession. And it's going to add another planting in June. And so if I want to continue harvesting green beans for as long as possible, I can just keep on adding successions, and it's going to show my direct seeding date, my harvesting date. If I planted here, the first harvest is here. If I do another succession here in June, I'm getting another harvest in August. And if you come over here and you say add succession again, it'll keep on adding them in until the weather won't allow. So I'm going to keep doing that till it pops up a warning. And let's do one more. Okay, this is what I was waiting for. Okay, so this now is saying if I plant past this date, it's likely going to be too cold, and we are likely going to experience our first frost, and we're not going to get a harvest. That doesn't mean you couldn't test the waters, but ideally best to not plant at this time. So what I'm going to do is just cancel that crop. But what's great is that that's why the succession planting is so nice, and the features in Seedtime are so great, because it keeps mapping it out for you, but then it warns you once you can't plant anymore. So basically I can keep on sowing my green beans all the way to, let's see, it put me into September, and my last harvest is in November, and then likely right here around November 24th, where these squares turn blue, that's when we could start experiencing some cooler temperatures, maybe even a first frost. So that's what I would do starting with green beans. Now I'm going to go to something like tomatoes, my very favorite crop. And I know that one of my favorite varieties is Early Girl, so I'm going to actually put the variety in. And it has that in there. Okay, so, and it's showing that I should transplant. And I just want you to see again how it's going to put in that first planting date. So it's going to take me back to starting my tomato seeds indoors back in February, transplanting in March. However, if I was starting today, I missed that chance. So we're going to try tomatoes again. And this time I'm going to say find my next best planting day. So it's going to go in and it's going to find the next best day after today. All right. And now it came back with May 22nd. And so that is great news, because that means that I can still plant tomatoes this time of year. So I'm going to set that as the date, add it to the schedule. And so what it actually does is it actually set this up as a seeding date, meaning because tomatoes should be transplanted, technically you would start your own seeds, prior to planting date, and then you would go transplant them. And so Seedtime is assuming you want to start your own seedlings and then go transplant. However, if you look at this, you can see, okay, you're seeding here on May 22nd, but then you're transplanting here the end of June, so about a month later. But you could actually just transplant tomatoes on the same day. So if you go to a local nursery or garden center and they still have tomato transplants, you could just technically buy your transplants and plant them right now on May 22nd. You don't actually have to start your own seeds. However, if you want to start your own seeds, you totally can, and you would just start them tomorrow and then transplant them in about 4 to 6 weeks. And so then you can do the same thing, and you can come over here and say add a succession, and it's going to show you can start tomatoes again in mid-July and transplant at the end of August. And if I were to do it one more time, I'm guessing it's going to give me a frost warning. Yep. So past that July seeding date, after this, it's saying if you start your seeds now and transplant, that fourth time, you're going to need to protect your crops with, some row covers or have them indoors or maybe in a greenhouse. And so you're not going to be able to plant them outdoors this time of year, most likely. And so I'm just going to cancel that planting and then just look at my calendar. So it's showing I have a seeding of tomatoes here. Sorry, I didn't say my date. So technically back in February, I could have planted for the first time indoors, transplanted at the end of March. I could transplant again in June if I started my seedlings on May 22nd, or I could also just transplant on May 22nd. I can also start seeding another batch in mid-July. I could transplant towards the end of August and be harvesting tomatoes all the way up until mid-November, depending on the weather. So there is not just a one planting date. You have such a large window. And what's great is I know that you might be watching this and you might be somewhere that has a really short growing season. So I am in Zone 9B, California, and we have a very long growing season when it comes to warm weather crops. So if you're somewhere that has a really short growing season, Seedtime is going to tell you it's going to have that really short window for you. And it might say, you missed your chance truly until next year. But you can add in other things. For example, if you live in a more mild climate with more mild summer temperatures, but probably a cooler or a longer cool growing season, you can add other things in like carrots. And for us here, it's going to say most likely that carrots are not able to be planted until fall because it's too hot right now for carrots. It's putting my first seeding date back in May. Oh, sorry. No, I read that wrong. My first direct sowing was back in March if I wanted to plant them for the spring/summer season. If I go over here and I say add succession, it's going to say it's going to get too hot, which is totally accurate. It's too hot for me to plant carrots, beyond mid-spring because it just gets too warm. And so I'm going to cancel that, but I'm going to show you how you can then see your next best date. So this is how I was saying how you can plan ahead for fall. You can plan mid-season that you're in, plan ahead for next year. You can plan out everything. And so obviously I missed my chance for carrots right now. And the next best date is not until later on. And I want to see what that date is. What's the next best date after today? And so then I know when can I plant carrots next. And we'll see what it pulls up. All right. So it's saying my next best date to plant carrots is September 17th. Perfect. So I'm going to set that as my date, schedule that. And now as I scroll down into fall, I can see, okay, now I'm starting to plan out my fall stuff. So in September, I have my direct sowing of carrots in mid-September, and then I'll be harvesting by the end of November. So what's really cool about this too is it really shows you how you can plan a year-round garden. If I followed this advice, technically I'm going to be harvesting from tomatoes and bush green beans. And by the time those harvests are pretty much coming to an end, now I'm going to start harvesting from carrots. So it really just shows you how you can have year-round food coming out of the garden. You can even add in crops like herbs. So I could add in basil, and I actually usually like to direct sow my basil. And so another thing that I'll show you real quick is you can actually just filter by crop. So only the crop you want to see at the moment will show up on the calendar. So it's showing that I should have planted basil on April 15th. However, I'm past that right now. So let's just see what my next best date is. I still want to sow it by seed, and I'm going to find that date, and it shows that I can plant it right now. So I'm going to set that date, add it to the calendar, and now I can still get my basil in the ground. So if you are feeling like you're behind, I would be willing to bet that you're probably not, especially if you have a long growing season. And so I hope that this has helped you feel encouraged just knowing that you didn't miss your planting window. Whether you have a short growing season and you're just able to start growing your warm weather crops, or you have a long growing season and you missed your first planting window, you still have plenty of time to keep on growing, keep on planting, or just plan ahead for your fall garden, whatever it might be. I guarantee that there's something that you can grow no matter what season you're in, no matter what climate you're in. And Seedtime makes this so simple. And so be sure to check the link in the description below this video. It'll take you right to Seedtime so you can create your free account. And then I also wanted to remind you that I have a quick start garden plan for you. That link is going to be in the description as well. Basically what the quick start garden plan is it's going to help you figure out what to grow if you have no idea where to start. So if you are brand new to gardening, or if you're just struggling on what to grow, maybe you're limited on space, it's going to walk you through some steps to take of what to actually grow based on what your family actually likes to eat. And so you can just start small and start simple so that it's not overwhelming. I think you'll really enjoy it. That link will be in the description as well. And then you likely heard me say that tomatoes are my favorite crop. If you didn't, I think I mentioned it at some point throughout this video, but tomatoes are my favorite crop. If I could only grow one thing in the garden, it would be tomato plants. And I have a video right here that you can head to next that goes over my best tips for growing tomatoes. And so head to that video next, and I'll see you there.